Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. This is the show where between my guest interviews with subject matter experts and topic-specific deep dives, the aim is to arm you with actionable insights and information on how to prioritize your metabolic health and improve your overall health and well-being. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Duplessis, and today I've got a very special guest with me, a fellow podcast host who's had me on his podcast, the Health Wealth podcast, a couple of times already. Ryan Douglas, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're most welcome. So Ryan, for our audience, could you give us just a brief little overview of who you are, where you've come from, what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, what I do now is I have a health and wellness podcast, as you alluded to there. I also do some health coaching as well. And I got there through a number of years of experimenting with my own health and deep diving into how I thought I was doing everything right, according to the mainstream information. And my health was getting worse. And so I looked into why that was and went down a few rabbit holes and eventually found the truth and started to realize everything was a lie, and then decided to translate that information to as many people as I could to help them with their health. And so that's what brought me to what I'm doing now with the podcasting and the coaching.
Awesome. So you've touched on a couple of interesting things there, and I think before we delve into them, let me first pose to you two questions. So the theme of my podcast is metabolic health. So what does metabolic health mean to you, and what have you done today to invest in your own?
Great question. I think to me, metabolic health, although I concentrate a lot on the dietary side, to me, the metabolic health is an overall look of your health, because I think there's things outside diet that affect it as well. But it's a culmination of things to me, and it's just what you're doing in every aspect of your life that's contributing to your health. You know, it's how you eat, how you drink, how you sleep, how you move and exercise. And I think all of that contributes to your metabolic health. And I think it's a very overlooked and important part of health that people aren't really paying attention to.
Awesome. And what have you done today to invest in yours?
So today I've eaten right, because I do that every day, strict with my eating. I've got outside, got sunlight, moved, exercised, went for a run this morning with my boys. So yeah, we've done those things to keep on top of the metabolic health today.
Nice. Yeah, no, it unfortunately for us here in the UK, it's grey and miserable. I'm sat in a terraced room with the heater on, and I've got my coat on because it's cold. So there's been no sunshine. But yeah, what can we do? So in your intro there, Ryan, you've mentioned that you went down rabbit holes looking into the discrepancy between guidelines and what I'll call common consensus so far as metabolic health is concerned versus the truth that you discovered. Could you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as we know, in the mainstream, there's a lot of information which would be classed as healthy eating, which is what I was basically doing. I was eating, lots of things like pasta and rice and potatoes, and I wasn't eating an unhealthy diet. I wasn't having takeaways. I was eating home cooked food, but a lot of processed carbohydrates in there, not that much meat, vegetables in there. And my health was going the wrong way, which shouldn't really have been happening, because that's what we're told is healthy. And what I began to find was that it actually wasn't. And actually, a lot of those foods I was eating, which I was told were healthy, were actually the things that were doing the damage. And once I removed them and started changing them, I began to see improvements pretty fast. And, pretty much everyone else that makes those same changes gets the same results.
Okay. So when you say change, what did you change to? Let's specify a little bit. This episode is brought to you thanks to my work as a Zinzino independent partner. To find out more about Zinzino's product offering within test-based personalized nutrition, or to find out about how to join as an independent partner yourself
and build a revenue stream in helping others take the guesswork out of their personal health journeys, please stay tuned because I'll be sharing information later in this episode.
So one of the first things I did was not even about the types of foods I ate. One of the first things I introduced was intermittent fasting. So I learned a little bit about fasting, and began to look into that and the fact that, we don't need to be eating every hour or whatever it is people are eating nowadays nonstop. And I didn't think it was something I could do. I'd always been the person that couldn't leave the house without breakfast, no matter what. If I was going to be late, I'd rather be late than leave without breakfast. I couldn't go without it. And the first thing I did was I dropped breakfast, and I thought it'd be really hard, and it wasn't. It was really, really easy, and I felt better for it. And then from there, I began to make changes to my food. One of the first things I removed was sort of processed carbohydrates, like your pasta, and your rice and chips and things like that most people would think was a good staple of a meal. But I began to remove them because I saw the negative effects from them. And again, I felt good improvement from that. And I began to add a lot more meat to my diet, and began to go a lot more meat heavy with that, which helped a lot. And I eventually, what I eat pretty much now, what I went to is pretty much not quite meat only. I eat meat, some eggs, a little bit of dairy. I went to first sort of mainly meat, some still fruit and stuff like that. And then eventually I also dropped the fruit, and went for pretty much mostly just meat.
Cool. So we would define that, I suppose, as carnivore. Yeah, carnivore diet.
Pretty much, yeah.
Nice. And if using the gift of hindsight, if we cast our mind back and analyze that journey, what have been the most profound differences for you?
I think one was definitely the fasting, because I was someone who I would have always said I had a fast metabolism because I would get hungry quickly. But looking back with what I know now, it's just I was eating food that doesn't fill you up, essentially. But just that ability to go for a long time without food and the actual benefits it brings you, I think that was definitely something which was quite eye-opening to me at the time. Like now, it's kind of seems like common knowledge to me, but obviously back then, I didn't have a clue about that. And also, I think removing all those processed carbohydrates, the vegetables too. I thought, as I think most people do, that after eating a big meal, feeling kind of stuffed, bloated, can't move, I thought that was just how you normally felt after a big meal. I thought that was normal. And then what I realized when I removed those foods was I could eat a very big meal and actually feel completely normal afterwards, not bloated at all, no gas, and just able to carry on with my day without any energy slump. So again, that was pretty huge because I think so many people are accustomed that they think that that's normal, and it's absolutely not.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I actually remember raising a very similar point from my own health journey in your podcast when you interviewed me. For the longest period of time, I didn't realize that I had a gluten intolerance, and I thought it was completely normal to have a bit of stomach cramping and this sort of gas that you could probably weaponize and sell after a big meal because it was just normal. I'd always had that. And I loved pasta, absolutely loved pasta. Used to make myself very, very, very tasty pasta dishes. But yeah, it would leave me with stomach cramps and gas every time. And the moment I cut wheat and gluten out of my diet, gone. Doesn't happen anymore. So it's like, I remember sitting back and it was probably a week or so into not having any. And I thought to myself, like, something's different. And like the penny dropped and I was like, I'm not having gas anymore. I'm not having the stomach cramps. I'm not having digestive issues. Like that wasn't normal. I've had that forever. Oh yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people out there who walk around, like you say, assuming it's normal to feel a certain way after a meal, when in reality, that's not how you should be. That's your body screaming at you that you're eating the wrong stuff.
Exactly.
I have this bugbear with my wife, and I've got to tread carefully. Yeah, but she has issues with acid reflux, and the doctors have got her convinced that it's an excess of stomach acid, and therefore she uses Gaviscon and antacids and stuff like that. And knowing what I've learned, I don't believe that's the case. I don't think it's an excess of stomach acid. I think you're eating the wrong thing and it's causing you digestive upset. And that's leading to the reflux. If you fix what you're eating, that problem goes away. Your body is not producing excess acid for the sake of producing excess acid. Like fix the input, and then the symptoms will stop.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's completely right. Just normally a few small dietary changes is enough to get rid of things like acid reflux and that. I mean, my youngest son, a year or so ago, he had signs of GERD. He would get sort of gassy and hiccuping all the time stuff after eating, and I just tweaked a few things what he was eating, and then it was gone. He was fine since then. I mean, you think it's something going on in your stomach, and what's the main thing that's going to affect what's going on in your stomach? It's the food going into it. So yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, hopefully that's let a penny drop for someone who's listening to this and they've gone, well, you mean my acid reflux is not excess acid? No, just figure out what you're eating. And you'll be able to identify a pattern. There'll be certain things in your diet that you eat, and after eating that, you're going to have this problem. Well, stop fucking eating that.
Exactly.
It's not hard. Stop eating that thing. Eat something better. Yeah. And the problem goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the worst things for that are tomatoes as well. That's one of the first
things. The old nightshades. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. What else did I battle with? Yeah, like the grains were a big one. Like the grains really left me with, bad stomach cramping, bad gas. And then, it just was always the same. And then cutting them out, that just goes away. So you've also touched on something else I think is quite important. You did a series of small changes over time. You didn't just dive off the deep end straight into a completely different way of eating. And that's important for people to grasp, because human physiology doesn't like mass change. Like, even if you're going from a terrible diet to the very best diet in the world, if you change that overnight, you're going to cause yourself a bit of a distress and do yourself a bit of a disservice. I've got a mate who, through listening to my postings on LinkedIn and talking about it and stuff like that, decided to go carnivore. And bless him, he went all in off the deep end and put himself in hospital a week later. Like, really upset his system, gave himself the runs to the degree that he was hospitalized because there were problems, and almost put himself completely off. But then had a look at it a while later, once things had settled down, and sort of eased into it slowly. And then when he spoke to me about it, because I didn't know this was going on at the time, I was like, oh yeah, like, so I could have told you that, and apologies. I should have mentioned that more often, because you can't just dive off the deep end. You'll do yourself a disservice. You've got to set up a series of small incremental changes that then allow it to be sustainable and give your body a chance to adjust.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You got to remember, your body adapts to whatever situation it's in. It's built for survival, so it adapts to what you're doing. And then if you're going to completely change that, it needs time to adapt. And I see a lot of people struggle with issues with that, going from like a low fat, pretty much no fat at all diet to suddenly a high fat carnivore, and then they've got issues with that. It's like your body's not processing fat. It's not doing anything with your gallbladder's hardly working. Then you're going to suddenly start chucking a load of fat down there. Don't expect it to go perfectly. Like you said, people need to do it in increments. I was fortunate that was the way it happened for me, because I did it as I was learning, and as I learned more, I changed more, got good results, learned more, changed more, and so it was good. But I see a lot of people jump in, and I always, like you say, try and kind of warn people against going too much of a difference, because the last thing you want is someone to make a change which is actually going to completely change their life for the better, but because they do too much in one go, they get negative side effects in the first week or two and then give up, and then they never reach the potential of what they could have done. So it's better that they take a couple of months to ease into it and still then end up with the results, rather than they get put off by just jumping in.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. And in fact, that's why in my book, I've laid out a 7-step process that is meant to take a person at least 4 to 6 months to get through. Just to introduce, because it's about lifestyle at the end of the day. There's no, the term diet is unfortunate because it's associated with people chasing short-term goals all the time, where they'll implement a certain way of eating in pursuit of a temporary goal, achieve the goal, and then just fall back into what was normal for them, and just yo-yo, weight on, weight off, weight on, weight off, and do themselves tremendous damage over a long period of time, where what we need is lifestyle change, and we need to incorporate correct eating, correct sleeping, correct exercise, correct light exposure, and even grounding, as airy-fairy as that sounds. But it actually turns out it's got pretty robust science behind it, and it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I was chatting to a guy a bit earlier today and explaining a little bit that best I can tell, human physiology has 5 key foundational inputs. And what I mean by that is these 5 things which were part and parcel of surviving, whether you look at this through an evolutionary perspective or you look at this through a creationist perspective, these 5 things are demonstrably part and parcel of what inform our physiology, because we can measure the impacts and effects that they have. And the 5 that I mentioned are nutrition, exercise, sleep, light exposure, and grounding. And we can measure how these trigger and modulate different metabolic processes within us, different cascades of hormones, different functions within cells and organs, and they interplay. So it really is a case of formulating a lifestyle which takes all 5 and facilitates, at least in part, bits of each of the 5 every day. And that over time will lead to optimal health outcomes.
Yeah, I agree completely. And they lead into each other as well, because you eat better and you start to feel better. And so you want to exercise more, and then you exercise more, and maybe you get outside more as well with that. And then you start to sleep better because of that. And then that makes you want to keep up more with your eating and stuff. They all tie into each other. And as you start to make the changes and line them up, it's just a positive feedback loop, and you just keep going, and it becomes kind of easy and just normal. Like you said, it becomes a lifestyle. It's not like, oh, I need to do this for the next few weeks. It's just, that's just what I do every day. It's just normal.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, they're heavily intertwined as well. What we tend to see in the sort of metabolic health space is people want to jump into camps and tribes. And we have the nutrition tribe, and we have the light exposure tribe, and the exercise tribe, and so on and so forth. And what I've tried to do is take a step back and say, well, actually, there's pretty robust science behind all 5 of these things. And when you start to look into what they do at a cellular level, there's a hell of a lot of overlap. And I think it's a more reasonable argument that actually they're part and parcel of the same functions, and you need them all. You can't, there's no one that's more important than the other. You're supposed to have all, because cast our mind a few hundred years back, a few thousand years back, all 5 of those things played a part in our day-to-day struggle to survive.
Yeah, if you look back at humans, how we'd have lived for however many millions, thousands of years, as you say, it'd have been all of that. You look at what we would have ate. You look at, we would have been active all the time, moving. We've been outside most of the time in the sun. You know, grounding. We wouldn't have been. They weren't wearing shoes. Didn't have trainers on.
Yeah.
They're grounding constantly. You know, they're outside in the sun. When it's dark, they would have slept, because they're not going to be on their phone or anything else.
Yeah.
And you know, you just look at all of those things. They just did that. That was just, like you said, that was the way of life. And then we've basically gone the complete opposite way of all of those things. We're eating foods that didn't exist. We're not sleeping. We're staying up late. We've got all this blue light exposure. We're not outside in the sun. We're inside. We've got all these fake lights. You know, we're not exercising. Lots of people are sedentary. They're sitting, doing their jobs, sitting, doing everything. And we're basically doing the opposite of what we're designed to do. And then people wonder why we end up with such poor health.
Yeah. And we wonder why chronic disease has fast become our biggest health issue globally. It's madness. So you do a bunch of work as a health coach, and the one thing that I want to do with this podcast is tap into the health coach market, because there's a lot of podcasts in the space that quite rightly speak to the academic professionals, scientists, doctors, so on and so forth, and rightly so. But I think that there's a missed cohort in the health coaches because you guys are the ones on the front line, for lack of a better expression, working one-on-one with people and taking all that academic knowledge and putting it into practice and helping people implement lifestyle change. If you were to try and give us an overview of the top 5 issues that you see regularly amongst patients or clients, shall we say, what would those be?
So digestive issues are definitely high. Things like Crohn's, colitis, issues like that are very common nowadays. And very, I'm not going to say easily because nothing's easy because it requires discipline, maybe simply reversible, those conditions. Type 2 diabetes, very, very common as well. Autoimmune issues as well are very big. There's a lot of that. Thyroid issues as well seems to be growing quite a lot.
Okay.
And I would say for the last, I would say it links to so many things, but gut health definitely one. But that one of the main things that comes from that is what we would call maybe mental health issues. And things like ADHD and autism, as well as sort of anxiety, depression, and stuff like that. And that all comes from your gut health. So, I mean, that stuff is just rife as well.
Yeah, and that's an important link there. So I take it you've read Brain Energy by Chris Palmer, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind by Georgia Ede.
I haven't read the books yet, but I've listened to a lot of their stuff. I've listened to them a lot on podcasts and followed a lot. And yeah, they're both a big fan of both of them.
Yeah, nice. No, their work is stellar. I love the fact that they've spearheaded what we would call the what is the term for it now? The nutritional psychiatry as a field, where you're looking at nutrition, lifestyle interventions as the primary mechanism to address psychiatric problems, and they're seeing tremendous success with it as well. And almost by accident, listening to Chris Palmer's sort of testimony on how he stumbled across it, all he was trying to do was help a patient lose a bit of weight, because the patient who had schizoaffective disorder, I believe that's the case. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what he had.
I've heard him tell the story. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and he was just trying to help him lose a bit of weight to feel more confident about himself. And in so doing, using a ketogenic diet to lose the weight, because that's the primary reason most people want to go to a ketogenic diet is to lose excess body fat, which is fine. It's a perfectly valid motivation, but ended up resolving his schizoaffective disorder, which is unheard of before that point. Like, not documented anywhere in the literature that, if you just sort your diet out, this very serious mental disorder that has you sort of sectioned away from society because you can't be trusted around people goes away. Mind blowing.
No, they just missed that out. Unfortunately, that's because a ketogenic diet can't be packaged up in a pill and sold for anything. So that's why they're kept under wraps.
For sure. Yeah. And I guess, wanting to play devil's advocate a little bit, pharma has a bad rap, and deservedly so. But at the end of the day, pharma is still an industry, a profitable industry, and it has to make profit. And the way you make profit is through repeat customers. And the way you get repeat customers is through helping them, but not resolving the issue. So what does pharma focus on? Symptom management.
Yeah.
Because that's where the money is. So, and I guess my issue with the entirety of the system, if I was to try and put it down to 2 things, is A, we're taught to look after our health in a reactionary method. What I mean by that is you assume everything's fine until something starts to go wrong. And then it ties into B, you're taught to outsource your health, because when something starts to go wrong, you're not encouraged to take stock of what's happening in your own life. You're taught to go to an expert, let them diagnose you, and then give you a pill or give you a tonic or give you something that you can take to resolve the symptoms that you're experiencing. Yeah. And so we constantly end up in a cycle of waiting for things to go wrong, and then managing the symptoms of the things that go wrong. And that works okay to a degree for infectious disease. And I think perhaps that's where the model originates from. Infectious disease used to be a major issue health-wise. Infectious disease and acute trauma, I would say, were the two biggest issues that we had casting our minds way back. But in modern life, since the agricultural revolution and since lifestyle has become more and more convenience focused, and as you correctly detailed earlier, we've fallen out of living appropriately for our physiology. We've seen this rise of chronic disease, which is non-infectious and therefore can't be effectively treated with the same model, because an infection will eventually resolve. Your body will fight it off and get rid of it, give or take, depending on what the infection is. So symptom management makes sense. Acute trauma, again, your body will heal. So symptom management makes sense in supporting the body through the healing process. That doesn't work with chronic disease.
Hey everyone, I hope that you are enjoying the discussion so far. I apologize for interrupting the episode, but I just want to take a moment to talk to you about the work that I do with Zinzino. Zinzino are a brilliant Scandinavian biotech and life sciences firm. Their concept of test-based personalized nutrition is absolutely revolutionary, and they are the pioneers of test-based personalized nutrition. I use their products and solutions myself and my family. In fact, we use multiple of their products. And Zinzino has been instrumental in helping me identify that I was omega-3 deficient, horrendously so, and to get my omega-3 deficiency resolved. You see, their at-home tests give you the data and insights needed to inform your dietary strategy to see whether you have any key essential nutrient deficiencies or imbalances that need addressing. And where you do, they have targeted supplementation stacks that are personalized to you according to your age, sex, and body weight, which means they are most effective to get you back to optimal. This isn't about just avoiding deficiency. This is about getting you back to optimal, and that's a complete and utter game changer. So if you would like to know more, I have linked a short survey in the episode description. Complete the survey. It asks you some simple questions about your health goals and desires. It takes less than a minute to complete, and what I'll give you off the back of that is a personalized product recommendation out of Zinzino's solution catalog, telling you which I think best suit your desires and needs and why. I'll then also personally reach out to you to see if there's any questions or queries that I can answer. Let me take the guesswork out of your health journey.
You need to address and change the lifestyle factor which has caused it to see it resolved. If you don't change the lifestyle factor that's caused it and you just focus on managing the symptoms, you just end up in this death spiral of things getting progressively worse. And type 2 diabetics are a classic case of this, because it's widely understood that once you're on insulin, all that happens is your dose gets higher as you get sicker and sicker over time. And type 2 diabetes used to be seen as a chronic degenerative disease that you would manage the symptoms as best you can, but eventually it's going to kill you. And nowadays we know, and I remember coming across this for the first time, it was in 2018, and it blew my mind, that you can completely reverse it and come off all medication and be perfectly healthy again, provided you eat appropriately for your physiology. Like, I was labeled a heretic for suggesting it. I was like, have you heard what these people are talking about? That like you can reverse your diabetes. And I was like, no, you can't do it. And now it's widely accepted that yes, you can. Like with a ketogenic diet, restricting carbohydrates, you can completely reverse it. Yes, it'll come back if you go back to the carb-heavy diet, but maybe that wasn't appropriate for your physiology to begin with. And maybe that's why it caused the issue that you had. And maybe you don't want to be going back to that.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, if you go back to the early 1900s, before insulin was discovered, and that was also the treatment for type 1 diabetics, was a very low carb ketogenic diet, and that worked very well for them. And then obviously they discovered insulin, and then it was they started to go the other way from that. But that, you know, that worked perfectly fine then, and it works perfectly fine now. We've just forgotten it for the profit of insulin.
Yeah. I've got a good mate who is a type 1 diabetic, and he was very resistant to the message. And I sent him some stuff saying, look, like, I appreciate this is a sensitive topic, but just look and listen to what these people are saying, because and this is the difference between type 1 and type 2, as I understand it. So a type 1 diabetic whose beta islet cells just don't work anymore, like they cannot produce their own insulin, they have to get insulin exogenously. But what the ketogenic diet will do for them is help to maintain their blood sugar within a healthy range and keep it stable all the way through. And they won't have any spikes to try and deal with. And therefore, their insulin dosage is nice and stable. And this mate of mine, without me knowing about it, changed his diet, went ketogenic. I found out about it a few weeks ago. I just got in touch with him out of the blue. We haven't spoken in ages. And he's lost like 7 stone, and he's looking much better, feeling much better. And I was like, oh, dude, like, so happy to hear that. Like, yeah, no, it's amazing the difference that it can make for people.
Yeah, definitely. And with type 1s as well, people have to remember that it's not even just insulin they're on. They're almost always on additional medications. And so, by improving their diet, they can get back to just a minimal dose of insulin. That's it, nothing else, and be healthy. Because obviously that high insulin levels is one of the things that causes all the issues in these chronic health conditions. And so them having to put loads into their body is not a good thing. It's literally keeping them alive, but at a cost. So you bring that down, you have only a small dose, you get rid of all the other meds. It's like a whole new life for them.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So you are now located out in Dubai, and you mentioned a short while ago getting out in the sun is important. Let's unpack that a little bit. Why?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the main things with it is our circadian rhythm. And so sunlight plays a huge part in that. Our timings of eating and sleeping play a part in it as well, but the sunlight is huge. And so first thing in the morning, getting sunlight in your eyes, and then in the evening, before the sun goes down, trying to get some sunlight again, but then also once the sun has gone down, minimizing as much as possible the fake blue lights and things like that, all help to set your circadian rhythm. And a lot of our health comes from that. If your circadian rhythm's off and poor, even if you're eating right, you're going to still struggle with your sleeping, and you're going to probably still struggle with your stress levels because your cortisol is not going to be well controlled. And blood glucose is not well controlled when your circadian rhythm's off and your sleep's off. So as we said before, they all tie into each other. So sunlight is important. And obviously vitamin D, the more time you spend in the sun, the more your body's going to produce vitamin D, especially if you're eating the right diet, which is giving it the right materials to make that with, then it's going to improve your health there as well. And, even again, we go back, say 100 years or maybe even less, people used to be sent away on holiday. Doctor would say, go on holiday to feel better. Everyone knows that the sun makes you feel better. Hospitals used to have outside areas where they would put patients outside to get sunlight. Like we naturally know that sunlight's good for us, but it's another thing where it's again been attacked in the mainstream, and people are scared of the sun and sunburn and skin cancer and things like that. All these false accusations against it, and so we've become scared of it. But sunlight's hugely important for us and all other animals. If you look at other animals, obviously, except for maybe nocturnal creatures, which don't, but ones that are out in the day, mammals similar to us, sunlight's super important to them. They'll seek it out and make sure they get it. And it's just, when you kind of step back and you look at it and you get rid of all the rubbish, it just makes sense. It's kind of like common sense, really, that it works.
The weirdest thing is, like, it's very well established in the literature that shift working is terrible for your health. And I don't find much in the way of sort of rebuttals against that. I think that's widely accepted, that shift patterns of working is terrible for your health. But it's exactly what you've just described. It's being out of sync with your circadian rhythm and trying to function in such a way that your body can't settle into its natural rhythm and get the natural stimulus that it needs for that whole process. And yet, when you try and talk to people about the fact that you need to be out in the sunlight and you need to wake up in the morning, go to sleep at night, and follow a circadian cycle, people get bent out of shape about it. Like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, not connecting those dots.
No, and you just, like you said, you just have to look at the statistics of health outcomes for night shift workers, and it's shocking. The rates they have of everything is so high, and
Yeah.
it's one of the, you know, to anyone who is a night shift worker, no offense, but it's one of the worst things that you can do for your health. Obviously, unfortunately, for some jobs, people have to do it, but
Mm.
yeah, it's the, as you say, it's undeniable, that link.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I got a mate again who has had to take on night shift work because he's trying to start up his own business and to give himself the income level that he needs and also the time freedom that he needs to get the other business off the ground. Night shift in his particular profession is what makes sense. And we were talking about, and I said, look, long term, it's going to be bad for you. However, if you think about this and contextualize it as a residency, just to use a hospital analogy, like people go through medical school and then they'll have to do a residency period where they basically live at the hospital, work crazy hours, go through hell to come out on the other side specialized and then
Mhm.
live the good life. I think every profession can have that and elements of that to it. So that's a
Yeah.
good way to contextualize it in your own head, is to say, well, this is my residency period. I need to have a plan and I need to have a plot or a course plotted to get from A to B over a set period of time. And then do that, get there and get out, and then get back into what would be your normal circadian rhythm and or into a vocation that allows that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And for people who have to do a night shift, if you can work the timings where you can wake up before the sun goes down, so you can get sunlight first, and then your first thing, and then if you go to bed maybe when the sun comes up, and you could get a little bit of sunlight then, um, and maybe try and incorporate some red light in your daytime, which is obviously nighttime, you could probably try to limit some of the factors of it. But yeah, it's never going to be optimal like that,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, agreed. It won't be optimal. I don't think although you've touched on a good point there, because I think that we do have technological advancements that could be used now to mitigate some of the negatives,
Yeah.
to make it a little bit easier to bear. So that's well worth looking into for people who are shift workers.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, well, I mean, we live in a very technologically advanced time. Why not take advantage of it and use it to help you?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's funny. On the podcast recently, I was speaking to someone, and we were speaking about, there was red light, there was maybe sort of ice baths and things like that. And we were just talking about the fact that really all of these kind of new technologies and new developments in sort of the biohacking space, they're basically just recreating how we would have lived thousands of years ago. That's
Yeah,
what it is. It's kind of trying to help us get back to it. We're never going to get back to that way of living now, so it's trying to help us get back to it by using technology.
yeah. That's a crazy thing to think about. Um, like we have in the exponential explosion of our technology, we have pushed our lives and lifestyle so far out of what is natural that it's now, it takes dedicated effort, special effort to try and get back to it.
Yeah.
It's mental. Like we've become so used to convenience that we have to go and put in specialized, dedicated effort to get away from convenience and to get a bit of physical stimulus, get out in the sun. I mean, just being grounded.
Mm.
Like when I grew up on the coast in South Africa, that was probably, so yeah, that's actually a good thought. So there are certain communities in certain situations where they probably get a good amount of grounding naturally because they're outside, they're barefoot, they're carrying on, got that outdoors lifestyle going, which is fantastic. And I had that growing up. So wasn't aware that grounding was a thing back then. But now in the UK, like for me to get grounding in, like it's winter. I'm not standing barefoot outside in the grass in winter for any extended amount of time at all. In the summer, I don't mind, be barefoot outside, happy days. Um, but again, so what I do now is I use a grounding sheet on my bed and plug that into the earth on the socket in the wall, and that grounds me while I sleep. So yeah, there's technological advancements we can use today to sort of get us back to where we should have been naturally. But yeah, it's crazy the amount of effort it takes, like dedicated effort and specialized equipment just to try and get you back to what would have been natural 200, 300 years ago.
Yeah. It's
Mental,
crazy.
mental. So, where to next? So you've been carnivore for a period of time now, and you've had tremendous success with that. How is your family sort of taken to that? Are they eating in a similar way with you? Are they on board with it or not so much? Like how has
Yeah.
that worked?
Yeah. So I mean, at first, I think they probably thought I was crazy, like most people do. But obviously they saw the results too. And obviously, I began to learn as well the reasons behind why it worked. It wasn't just that it worked, it was that I knew why it worked. I started to understand how nutrition and food interacts with us, with our bodies and our health. And so, yeah, they eat what I would describe as probably low carb.
Okay, cool.
My oldest son eats pretty similar to me, just he has some fruit as well in his
Hmm.
diet. His is kind of reasonably strict because I've been working on healing his gut a little bit because
Hmm.
he, what I'm pretty convinced is when he was born, he was put on a course of antibiotics for about 4 days, which I think did the majority of the damage to his gut. And then he has things that come from that, like anxiety and other things. So I've been working on that. So he eats similar to me. The youngest is very similar. He just has a tiny bit more carbs, and my wife eats pretty low carb too. So we're all on that kind of end of the scale,
Nice.
but not quite as strict as I do. But yeah, and they've all seen results as well. And my dad, funny enough, he's had different health issues over the years, and maybe for the last year, he's been eating low carb. He had some issues and he had to go to hospital for some tests and stuff. And I just said, look, let's have a chat and just talk about some improvements you can make on how you eat to kind of benefit that. And so he's got great results too. He's lost a load of weight. He's feeling so much better. All his tests come
Awesome.
back fine. Hospital's all happy with him. So, it's good, great, especially when you can help people close to you.
Mm.
Is even better. But everyone gets good results from it, from the changes that they make, which however big or small they are.
Mm. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I've got a bit of an opposite to that in that my family think I'm a three-headed weirdo alien. And they tend to want to do their own thing. And there's me like, you need to eat more meat. You need to eat a bit better. So on and so forth. My wife, bless her, she doesn't have the best immune system in the world. Like definitely not a great one. And with us having young kids, like my son's at nursery, my daughter's at junior school, and between the two of them, there's a new bug every week. Like it's madness. The only time our household tends to be bug free is when they're on long-term holiday.
Yeah.
And then the moment it all like school starts up again, it's the petri dish is back, and they just swap it around between the three of them. And then there's me, and I'm like, it's like I'll get like a scratchy throat, and then it'll be gone the next day. And be like, oh, I'm not feeling so good. And then, yeah, I'll be fine. And it winds my wife up. And I can't force it, but I drop hints here, there, and everywhere. And I'm like, let's tidy up the eating a bit. Like, I don't think your immune system is as hereditary or genetic as you like to think. I think that, yes, for sure, genetics play its part. But regardless of what the genetic sort of lottery gifted you, you still need to give your body the basic building blocks. You still need to eat appropriate for your species and have all the appropriate stimuli that your body needs to get the best positive outcomes for you. It's not to say that everyone's going to be perfect. There are some people who are just genetically predisposed to things that other people aren't, but they still need to give themselves the basics.
Yeah. Agreed.
And
Your immune system is a living, breathing system. So it responds again, like our body, like all of our health, it responds to what it's given and the situation it's put in. Like we said right at the beginning about, if your body's doing what it needs to survive in its current situation. And when you make a big change, it's got to adapt. Your immune system is the same. It's doing what it needs to do to survive with what you've given it.
Yeah.
And by changing what you give it and maybe the stresses you put it under, you can make a huge change to it. Absolutely. I'm same as you. I honestly don't remember the last time I got ill. And the family around me and people have been ill and whatever, and I don't get anything. And it's just because my immune system is just working as it should do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always had a fairly robust immune system. I remember being extremely young, so sort of 6, 7 years old, and being in and out of hospital a lot with like gastroenteritis and stuff like that. And then since then, that was it. Like I would get seasonal colds and flus, but I've never really been deathly ill again.
Yeah.
But since cleaning my diet up and sorting that out, I don't even get the seasonal stuff anymore, certainly not to the degree that I used to. I used to get wiped out by a cold at least once a year, snotty for weeks and feeling run down and on the beach and this and that. And the next thing, trying to manage the symptoms. I don't even get that anymore. I've had COVID 4 times that I've tested positive for. And like seasonal hay fever was worse than that. And I don't think that, like, maybe there's an element of luck to it. Maybe I'm just blessed with superior genes. I don't think so. But I think I give my body the platform it needs to thrive, and it's thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. And it ties into the gut health as well, because that's where our immune system is based. And it's all a perfect balance. It's, it's like in nature. If humans got out the way and left nature, you have your perfect balance, the trees, the plants, the animals, the bugs on the ground, and it all ties together in the, the circle of life, as you'd say. And our body's the same, and it works perfectly. All the, there's bacteria, there's virus, there's fungus, there's everything in our bodies, but they're all doing a job they're meant to do, working together, and our immune system too. And it's only when we start to put a load of stuff in our body that should not be there and start having a load of toxins around our body that shouldn't be there, that's when it malfunctions. But if we just give it what it needs and we provide our body with what it should have and live how we should, the immune system will work perfectly and can do an absolutely perfect job. You talked about the common colds that everyone gets, especially in the UK. When do we always get them? In the winter. What are we doing? No sunshine. We're inside. There's Christmas and all these things. People are eating absolute rubbish because it's cold outside. They're inside. They're probably eating some comfort food, and everyone ends up getting ill. It's like, is it the cold weather or is it all these other things that we're doing?
Yeah, no, for sure. What else? I think we have covered a good amount of ground there. If you were to give our listeners a single takeaway, if there was one thing you'd want them to take away from this discussion and really have it resonate with them, what would that be?
I think the one thing I would like people to take away and then go and do with as they please, whichever way they decide to go, would be to just appreciate how much what you put into your body affects your health. Because I think too many people go through life not really thinking that it matters. So if you can just appreciate how much of an effect it has, from there, you're probably going to put a bit more thought into what's going into your body and thinking about what it will do. And from there, you can start to probably just build some healthier habits on your own, because you can start to notice the changes it makes. So I think just an appreciation of how much it actually affects us, the things that we're putting inside our body.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good advice. And coming back to the start of our conversation, we mentioned that conventional knowledge is wrong.
Yeah.
So if you were to get just a tiny bit more specific on that and give people advice to avoid the conventional pitfalls, what would that be?
So the common knowledge is that a high carbohydrate diet is what's healthy, and a low fat diet with carbohydrates as more than half of our, I hate to use the word calories, but that's what people use, half of our calories going in. And that to me is wrong. And don't get me wrong, there are people that if you can manipulate it properly, you can eat a high carbohydrate diet and maybe not have the side effects a lot of people have. But for the majority of people, eating a high carbohydrate diet, especially in today's society with the food we have available, it's not going to bring you to good health. And getting away from that, fat has been completely wrongly vilified. Animal fat is one of the greatest nutrients and foods that we have available to us. It's essential to proper health. So we need to incorporate more animal fat, not just fat, because there are forms of fat that aren't beneficial. Seed, vegetable oils are a fat. It's animal fat, natural animal fats are key to health, and cutting back your carbohydrates. Most people don't have to go as strict as I go. Most people don't need to, get rid of everything. But what you want to do is reduce your carbohydrates and definitely reduce all of your processed food intake. That's one of the big things too. If you can get back to just eating actual, real, natural foods direct from a farmer, if you can do it, so the least amount of poisoning has happened to it, that's going to be a huge improvement to your health. And yeah, I think my eyes being opened to what was actually in our food and what was actually happening to our food before it reached our table, I think that definitely helped me on my journey quite a lot, because once you realize the amount of toxins that are on our food, even food that we think is healthy, you start to realize that I need to be careful about where my food comes from.
Given you've made it this far into the episode, I can only assume that human metabolic health is a subject you find fascinating and engaging, and it resonates with you, and that's absolutely awesome, because we're very much alike in that regard. And because of that, I want to take a moment to talk to you about potentially becoming a Zinzino independent partner in the same way that I have. You see, Zinzino have tremendous opportunities available for independent partners, meaning people who decide that they don't just want to be a customer, but instead want to use the concept of test-based personalized nutrition to benefit their own health, to take the guesswork out of their own health journeys in the same way that I have, but then to build that user story, to build that testimony of the differences that's made in our health journeys, and use that to market Zinzino's product, to market the concept of test-based personalized nutrition in the exact way that I'm busy doing right now, and bring on board other customers and other partners to grow the distribution network. And in doing so, you get handsomely rewarded through their compensation scheme, which is one of the best that I've seen in the industry. So if you'd like to explore setting up a side revenue, whether it be something that you only do a couple hours a week, or something that you put a little bit more effort into and build into a full-fledged career, or anything in between, get in touch and let's have a talk about the opportunity and how this might be the right fit for you, not only to take the guesswork out of your personal health journey, but to also build you additional income streams that help to improve your financial situation and the possibilities for you and your family.
Yeah. I mean, I was always someone who thought it was overhyped, the need to wash your vegetables before you cook and eat with them. And then, what I've learned through my ketogenic days, learned about the glyphosates and the pesticides that are used and the herbicides that are used to try and preserve the crop for the farmers who are growing mass fields of monocrop, single plants. And then that all gets harvested, and you got to wash that stuff off. You got to get that stuff off, and the fruit with the wax covering that they have, just to make it look nice and shiny and preserve it a bit for the shelf life. It's mad. You go pick a grape off a vine out in the wild. Well, not out in the wild because they don't occur in the wild. You have to go to farms to find them, and that should be a hint to people that maybe it's not as natural as you think. But you go to a vineyard and pick a grape, and it doesn't have that same sheen. But you go to a store and get a grape, and it's and go run that under hot water and watch that stuff melt away. It's just it's crazy what they do.
I know, exactly. And then you think that fruit has probably been picked about 7 months ago before it's reached your plate. And then, like you said, if you go out in nature and you pick fruit from a tree, that's going to start going off as soon as you get home. So you got to think, how on earth have they made it last 7 months? It's it's not going to be good.
Ryan, thank you very much for your time. We'll no doubt have you on the podcast again. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Likewise.
Enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
Yes, and you too.
Thanks, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the episode. I hope that you found the conversation meaningful and informative, and I hope that it has empowered you with some tools and insights that you can take to tweak and improve your own lifestyle approach in pursuit of optimal metabolic health outcomes. If you've enjoyed the episode, and if you're enjoying the podcast, I'd like you to do me the kindness of please subscribing to the channel.
giving it a like, maybe even giving it a share, help to raise awareness and get the podcast in front of as many viewers as possible, because it is my passion to try and help as many people as possible to understand more of the nuance around metabolic health and how to tweak their lifestyle in pursuit of optimal outcomes. Also, if you have any constructive feedback, things that you think I could improve on, any critiques, any criticisms, please do feed them back. I give you my solemn word that I will take them seriously, and I will, to the best of my ability, work to improve and to give you a more refined and more targeted product as a result of your feedback. So I will take it seriously, and I'll do what I can to improve the show. But again, thank you very much for watching. Keep thriving.